I've got time to mark this motherfucker. Here we go again. We can't hear anybody. Nobody can talk to anybody.
You guessed your pressure points with your two favorite hosts. I'm D, and this is Fruity AJ. We're coming at you with Season 7, Episode 44. You're a Chiquita banana. AJ is going to obsess and deep dive into his favorite phallic fruits. So find us on Instagram and Patreon at pointsopressure.com. It's the fucking season finale, bitch.
Well, turn the fucking thing off, you dumbass.
Suddenly there's a lot more pressure on me when you remind me that this is the season finale.
Yeah, this is the last one for a month. People are going to be re-listening to this specific episode for 34 days.
Oh.
January 7th, we'll be back.
I
I think we said January 13th last week.
We did.
January 7th.
So, hey, 1 week earlier.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, so that's a lot of pressure.
Or 6th, January 6th. The 7th is a Tuesday. January 6th.
There you go. The 6th. So to preface this episode, D's getting sick.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired. But if you want to know the details, you can go listen to the last exclusive episode on
true.
Patreon.
That we just recorded.
We just recorded
an
10
hour
minutes
ago. Yeah.
Well, we finished. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, if you want to hear the backstory, is that tea?
Yes. Yes,
kind?
it is. It was called Throat Coat.
Fuck yeah. Throat Coat is the throat goat.
It tastes like black licorice, so I want to puke, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
That is the worst flavor possible. Yeah. If you think black licorice is a good flavor, tell us about it in the comments on Instagram, instagram.com/points of pressure. All right, now that we've got all that out of the way, do you want to just jump right on in, or do you want to do a little... give me
we didn't
5
really
words
do,
of how your last week was.
5 words.
Or less.
Thanksgiving wasn't as bad as... And that's his...
Okay, perfect.
That was my 5 words. No, it was a pretty good week. Thanksgiving was pretty low-key. It was a good time.
Nice. It was busy, but it was good.
Yeah, had some acceptable food. I got so fucking full on Thanksgiving. We had
same.
The 2 dinners.
Yep.
It was a lot.
2 dinners, classic.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me make sure. Yeah, we're recording. All right. So, sorry, I'm super paranoid about that since, was it last week or the week before?
2 weeks ago,
2 weeks ago, yeah. So, yeah, same. Thanksgiving was good.
It's a good time.
Work was okay.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to learn how to 3 model stuff. Fuck, I was going to show you that between the episodes.
Oh.
Fuck it, we're doing a live review.
I was going to say, now you can forget at the end of the episode.
Yeah. Again. Now I'm going to show you. So I'm using Tinkercad because, I'm a bro. I'm a cheap guy.
Hey,
look what I designed. It's a jet inhaler from Fallout. It's pretty good.
Nice.
I designed two of them. One that's just the model, and the other one's like a printable model.
There you go. Oh yeah.
So there you go. That's what I've been doing at work the last couple of days. That and not watching my patients. No, I'm just kidding. They're fine. They're fine. So yeah,
they'll be fine.
They'll be fine. You're a Chiquita banana. Are you aware of the brand Chiquita bananas?
Vaguely. It sounds familiar.
It's the company is responsible for like 80% of bananas in the U.S. and Europe.
Oh, okay, yes.
So you've likely seen them or one of their other companies under their umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
They're a major fruit supplier to the U.S. and Europe. They're also kind of where the term Banana Republic comes from, which is an interesting, fairly, it turns out, racist name of some countries in usually South America.
Okay. How is it racist, though? It's referring to
because
bananas.
It refers to small countries with a dictator whose main export is usually one fruit and usually a banana. It was used as a racist term to just mean any small poor country anywhere.
I see what you're
But,
saying.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, what? Okay.
So the United Fruit Company was founded on March 30th, 1899, as part of a merger of different companies and stuff. And I'm not going to go into their history because it's just boring fucking corporate
Bunch of-
history.
yeah.
Like, oh, if you care enough, go fucking look on their website to see the whitewash version. In 1984, though, they became Chiquita Brands International. So yeah, if you've bought fruit in the U.S. and Europe, especially bananas, you've probably funded part of this company. Jesus. This is going to be a rough one. No. So basically, the whole idea of their company, their corporate history is buy a shitload of land, merge with smaller businesses, take out the competitors, form a monopoly in places that don't have protections against monopolies,
Dumb.
and then purchase shares of other existing plantations and companies throughout Latin America, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Colombia, most of the Caribbean. And then they would also do some funky stuff where they're like, okay, we have this, massive amount of land and exports for this country. Let's revolutionize their entire transportation system so that we can more efficiently do this and make more money.
I see.
And then we can say, oh, look, we've improved your transit network in your country.
Yeah. Look
Maybe
what we
you
can
shouldn't
do.
tax us.
Yeah.
Pretty shitty, but yeah, big thing. So basically they would then try to get... They specifically would target places that don't have, like, a minimum wage. And they would try to do everything they could to profit off the local people who they would hire loosely.
Yeah.
Basically,
Enslave,
debt in
hire.
servitude. Yeah. And then they would also make profits because the locals would have to use their new infrastructure, and they would get charged to use their new infrastructure.
Jesus Christ.
Let's see.
It's like all of their banana roads were like toll roads unless you're driving a banana truck kind of
Yeah.
shit.
Pretty much. Like, oh, you want to get on the train to travel from the capital where there are jobs to more rural areas or whatever?
These are banana tracks. Sorry,
well,
kid.
$5. Figure it
Yeah.
out.
I know the other way is cheaper, but you got to go. It takes 3 hours longer. The banana tracks are just a little more expensive. It's like an express route.
Yeah.
It's fucked.
It's super fucked. So they were also really good at being assholes to unions, especially when people would try to unionize in some of these countries.
But yeah, you don't even have a fucking minimum wage.
Yeah.
Like,
and back when they would, like, when unions actually had power in the 20s and 30s, they were also responsible for the Banana Massacre in 1928, which I've never heard of.
I think I have that one in my notes.
Okay, I don't talk about it very much, but basically...
You're good. I only grabbed it, like, very recently.
It's a good one. I don't talk about it. This episode is not about that, but basically, 1,000 people dead by the Colombian army because they were striking.
Jesus.
Not on the orders of their government, but on the orders of the United Fruit Company.
Oh, my God.
That's how much power they wielded in some of these countries, where they could literally command the army. Isn't that crazy?
That shit's wild.
Yeah, corruption is obviously rampant in these systems. And they have this long cutthroat history. They got hostile takeovers and Wolf of Wall Street shit. I don't know. But who gives a shit? Fuck them. Yeah, I already talked about banana republics. So, obviously, a lot of these countries, especially in this time period in the early 1900s, were very exploitative. There was a lot of corruption because of these American companies coming in and saying, we'll get you money. You don't charge us taxes, but we'll give you, like, throwbacks, off the books.
Yeah.
You become a multimillionaire while the rest of your country starves.
Yeah. They're like, oh, you don't have a corporate regulation in place? Great.
Awesome.
Perfect. Just
How
what we
can
were looking
avoid
for.
taxes in any way? And yeah, as long as the ruling class, the very, very small ruling class of these countries got a cut,
Yeah.
or were on the payroll, they could get away with anything. They wouldn't pay taxes.
Mm-hmm.
They could command the army. They could just evict people off hundreds to thousands of acres of land without pay. They could do anything.
Oh, we own this now.
Yeah, and they got extremely rich, extremely wealthy as a company because they're making an assload of money. So the societal structure was basically 99.9% poverty-stricken people who are suffering, like, on the edge of starvation, to the 0.01, if even, wealthy ruling class, and then American corporation controlling everything.
Yeah, trickle-down economics works, though.
It works every time.
Yeah.
They're investing in... They're bringing telegraph to these countries and railroads.
You ever seen a pyramid before, kid?
This one has my face on it. They're bringing Bass Pro Shops
God.
to Colombia.
It's like what? Mexico City. What's happening in Mexico City with all the, like, millennial
Oh, yeah.
migration that's happened down to there. Or immigration, not migration. I guess both.
Both. They work.
It's just like getting so extremely gentrified. It's fucking crazy. Gentrified, and I watched a bunch on it this week. Yeah, that it's just like it's really fucking pushing out like OG Mexico City.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's see. Also, these American companies, especially the United Fruit Company, would purposely devalue the currency in whatever country they were in.
Print their own. We use banana peels here now.
Pretty much, yeah. They, there was some instances of like scrip, like from like mining store type things.
Well, of course, because they haven't run into that shit like that was so predatory in West Virginia and all over the U.S. in the 1800s.
Well, at the same time, all of the major supply routes in and out of the country are controlled by this company, so they could very easily ship out hundreds of tons of bananas and then on the return bring back cheap as dirt, like living supplies and shit like that, and then say, well, yeah, we're going to pay you 5 cents a week, but you'll get 6 cents a week if you put it on credit at the store.
Yeah, if you put it on your Banana Republic card.
There you go. Now you're looping it. You're bringing it together. You're figuring it out.
Everyone's just in like tweed fucking polos and shit. Yeah. They're all dressed really, really well.
Yeah, but they're starving. But yeah, and it's a pain in the ass what they're doing, obviously, because of the devaluation of the currency and all this stuff. But it also basically made them ineligible for international foreign aid, especially in the early 20th century. These groups would be like, yeah, we'll help, starving people. Yeah. They look and they say, well, your country is exporting enough value that you don't need our help.
That's fucked.
Or like, if we average out how much money you're making, because the person at the top is making so much, the average is more than the cost of living.
It's like it takes them over like the welfare line kind of thing.
Yeah, which is so fucking stupid.
Yeah, Jesus.
All right, now we're gonna get that. That's all mostly background.
Because one guy that lives in your country makes $400 trillion a year.
Exactly. So
no one else makes that, but it brings the average up to like 100,000 each. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Fuck off.
That's exactly it. It's the average, not the mean. So in 1901, Guatemala hires the United Fruit Company to manage their postal service and modernize communication by installing telegraph lines and radio within their country. It's a good deal.
Yeah.
They hire this company, they come in, they modernize the country. Suddenly you have better communication.
Great.
And they're already kind of, involved in the country. So the United Fruit Company they install all that shit. And then they start buying up other companies that are starting up in Guatemala, local Guatemalan companies. And by 1930, within 30 years, they're the largest employer in Central America.
God damn.
Just based on their holdings in Guatemala.
That's nuts.
Yeah. They suddenly just control everything. They own over 3.5 million acres in Central America, and they are the largest landowner in Guatemala by physically owning 42% of the country.
Wow.
all private property. They don't even use all of it. There's a good
crazy.
portion of it that's just sitting there.
You never know when you might need more bananas.
Yeah, or we'll put a Fordlandia up or
Yeah.
a Jonestown.
Yeah, fuck it. Why not?
So, yeah, they control over 2/3 of the total exports of the entire GDP of the country
Jesus, that's insane.
within 30 years. So obviously they're good old-fashioned Americans, so everything should be above board, moral, ethical, right?
Yeah, little good guys. Good guys up at the top.
Yeah.
No one's rich that's a bad person.
No, they got there from
Bootstrap pulling.
helping other people.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously the largest single landowner in your country has a lot of sway, and largest employer in your country has a lot of sway over your politics. And all of this was happening, this massive expansion, growth, and control was happening during a period where the United Fruit Company was being terribly mismanaged and had a hostile takeover occur. At this point,
What?
they were just printing money.
Yeah.
They had so much money from other endeavors, other shit that they did in other places, that the company was completely, like, burning, and they were turning a massive profit. So poverty soars, but it was worth it because the United States and Europe needs to have affordable bananas.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth having entire populations just beat into wage slavery.
Sure.
Because the bananas cost like, what is it, like $1.20 per pound or something?
Yeah. It's no more than like $2 a pound. There's
Yeah.
no way that it's more than that.
And, just like these countries that were viewed as being underdeveloped, the USA is also heavily influenced by large corporations. I don't know if you know this.
Mm-mm.
The USA kind of has this thing about lobbyists.
No.
Just keep that in mind.
Jesus Christ.
So the Guatemalan people at this time, after 1930, were kind of getting pissed at their government just cozying up to this American company and other American companies and living in this crazy luxury, getting new mansions and houses, all while they're starving.
Yeah. Justifiably so.
And so there's these small groups starting to get together. And, there's a little disruption here or there. People are getting antsy. People are getting pissed. But by June 1944, the Guatemalan Revolution was completely underway. It was completely taken off. The people were rising up and fighting for
Communism.
livable wages. Actually, interestingly, they did not like communists. So the president, Ubico, who was the president up to 1944 during this revolution, he implemented legal debt slavery. He allowed landowners to execute workers as a disciplinary measure.
Oh my God.
And he loved to compare himself to Hitler and Mussolini. And he was extremely and outwardly racist against indigenous people, mostly the Mayan people.
When he got word that Nazis were fleeing to Argentina, he was pissed.
Oh, yeah. He's like, what? I got a whole fucking place here.
I literally made this place for you guys.
Yeah. He compared
What the
himself to
fuck?
Napoleon,
Jesus.
and he would import, like, paintings and statues of Napoleon to put around the place.
They were really small, though.
Oh, yeah.
They were 3x5s.
Yeah, 3x5 cards, yeah. They were prints. So he himself, let's see, where was it? Oh, man. I wrote these notes at like 2 a.m. I don't know what I was trying to say there, so I'll just skip ahead. So he was paid in a single year $215,000 in 1930s money.
Jesus. Do you need me to pull up a
In 1930s
converter?
USD. I did not do the conversion. I
Gotcha.
think it's going to be multiple millions of
How
dollars.
much? 215,000.
15,000
Okay, one sec.
in the 1930s, so anywhere. Also, yeah, that's like Great Depression, by the way. That's when, that's during the Great Depression. Let's see. And he was viewed as a great ally to the United States since 1931 because he basically let them build military bases wherever they wanted.
$4 million.
Oof. It's a shitload of money. While all of your people starve.
Yeah.
So yeah, the U.S. started building a bunch of military bases in the country, which the people were also really pissed off about, if you'd believe it. And finally, in 1944, the dictator Ubiko was overthrown in a military coup. Normally, you hear military coup and you're like, fuck.
Yeah, this one was a good one.
This one was surprisingly a decent one, because the military coup, the people who took power, basically said, okay, now that we got rid of this asshole, let's set up free elections. We're going to have an election in blank amount of weeks. We're going to give time for people to present their cases, to advertise, to say, hey, this is what I want to focus on. And they actually did have a free election for the first time in over 50 years. It was in a long-ass time.
Nice.
So they elected the first president after the revolution was Juan Jose Arevalo, who was a staunch anti-communist, hated communism.
God.
Important detail. But loved socialism because he actually understood the difference between socialism and communism. So he fills the government, the Congress, with liberal reformers who get to work they set up a minimum wage. They built over 6,000 schools, and they started introducing laws concerning universal suffrage, women's rights, minority rights, social rights of any class, creed, or race. It doesn't matter. So they start setting all this shit up, and they're pretty good. A couple of years go by. In 1951, Colonel Jacobo Arbenz decided he was elected that year. He was part of the original coup. He's been supporting this administration. He gets elected in 1951, and he says, we need to completely revamp and reform our economy.
Fair.
So he passed Decree 900, which specifically targeted unused United Fruit Company land and transferred it into the possession of over 100,000 family groups.
Oh yeah, put it in the
of
hands
people
of
who
the
did
people.
not own land. Landless farmers, they were called. And it's not like he just said, now that land is mine and now I can redistribute it. He paid for it. He paid for every acre out of government money, out of taxes, out of everything. But this is the best part. The value of the land was based on previous year tax filings. United Fruit Company has been purposely undervaluing their land to avoid paying taxes, so they didn't get very much back.
Oh, God.
It was basically a great way for him to say, fuck you.
Yeah.
You've been undervaluing your land, not paying us taxes. Well, now we get the land for real cheap.
Nice. That's fucking clever.
Yeah, I really like this kind of this era, these couple of years after Ubiko, because they have a really united view. People are on board. They just want to create something better. Everybody from, everybody except for the United Fruit Company. So yeah, color me surprised if the United Fruit Company wasn't kind of pissed off at this point.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of 1952, the government had redistributed 40% of United Fruit Company land. So they still had over 20% of land in the country to work with.
Just insane.
Which is, still crazy. But, they weren't going to let these damn communists get away with this. So they start distributing. The United Fruit Company starts a propaganda campaign in the U.S. And they start lobbying U.S. lawmakers that the new democratically elected government that has now had 2 elections is actually communist, despite every member being staunchly anti-communist. It seems like that this government. I'm not a specialist. I didn't go super far into it. But it seems like this kind of political revolution that happened in Guatemala was just against extremism. They didn't like fascism. They didn't like communism. They didn't like any kind of extremist stuff. They just wanted a better place through social programs.
Yeah, they just wanted, like...
We're paying the money. We should get the benefits of that.
Easy
crazy
democracy concept. And
you don't want $1 trillion going to the military every year when people are starving.
Yeah, we just all want to be equal for the first time ever.
Yeah. We want to work, get the value that we are generating.
Yeah.
We will pay taxes, and we'll get the services that those taxes should get paid for. Crazy concept.
Yeah, wild.
That's basically communism, right?
Fascist.
Yeah, that's somehow Nazi. So they start campaigning in the U.S. This idea of this communist government in Guatemala was pushed by a guy by the name of John Dulles.
Surprises me his last name isn't Ford.
Yeah, right? Well, do you recognize the last name? Dulles? He's the Secretary of State of the U.S. He's a former lawyer for the United Fruit Company, and his brother is Alan Dulles. I always say the name kind of weird. He's the director of the CIA. We've talked about Arthur Dulles before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They both happen to be on the board of directors for the United Fruit Company.
Jesus, of course they were.
So you have Secretary of State, director, and the director of the CIA now kind of getting this propaganda pushed at them, but also just they don't have to. It's not propaganda to them. They just know.
Yeah.
This is bad for the company. What can we do?
Yeah, we can make it look bad to everybody else.
Yep. The United Fruit Company's PR executive also just so happened to be married to President Eisenhower's personal secretary.
Oh, my God.
So he got her going, talking direct lines to the president, multiple direct lines to the president, especially because Eisenhower was more recently elected, and he wanted to show off his staunch anti-communist beginning of the Cold War leanings. So he was just ready to jump in to show, we're hard against the communists. And, of course, the CIA begins formulating Operation PB Fortune in 1953. The written goal of PB Fortune was to covertly remove the communist-controlled government of Guatemala. Obviously, they're not communists. Like, it's so stupid.
You know how you guys had a coup a few years ago that worked out and it benefited all of you?
We
want to have
democratic
a coup
elections
and make it worse.
Yeah, we want to go back to how it was before when you guys were legally allowed to be executed by the United Fruit Company for stealing a banana.
Yeah, we're going to make Guatemala great again. And Guatemala's like, wait, it is good.
That's such a real phrase. That's so real. So they hired an ex-officer of the Guatemalan military who hated the current president, Arbenz, and he did not like the new government. He was kind of really profiting off of the dictatorships that were going on before. So he really, he was definitely in a better country now, but he wasn't personally profiting as much. So they hire him. His name is Carlos Castillo Armas, and he rounds up some people who also hate the idea of ending suffering of the poor and feeding children and equal representation in the government.
Caring for your fellow man.
Yeah. So he rounded up a couple hundred guys, and the CIA says, here's some modern guns. Here's some equipment.
Jesus.
And we're also going to start feeding you intel and doing our own intel flights over your country and just feeding you a bunch of intel. So they train up this army, a couple hundred dudes, and June 18th, 1954, Armas and his truck, why did I say truck? That's not even... Armas and his army attacked with the support of the CIA, who was jamming radio waves. They were spreading propaganda. They were spreading lies because the United Fruit Company controlled the radio stations. They were even giving air support like they were supposed to get during the Bay of Pigs invasion. They were doing the Bay of Pigs in Guatemala.
It's so fucked.
And basically they spread the idea that the army had 5,000 people in it. It's a couple hundred. But it worked the misinformation worked so well. And, because they had these American pilots bombing key strategic locations in the capital, and because the CIA already had spies in place, the operation worked. President Arbenz said, hey, we're being attacked. We know this is being backed up by America.
Yeah.
By the United Fruit Company, if not America. Like, this is bullshit. We need to form a militia. Let's form a militia up. A couple hundred people showed up.
Yeah.
If they had actually known the size of the attacking army, they probably could have repelled them. But because they thought it was 5,000 people, he saw a couple hundred people show up.
He's like, well, shit.
He's like, oh, fuck. So he was forced to flee the country. It only took 9 days.
Damn.
For this whole coup to go.
Good Lord.
Yeah, so he fled to, I think, Mexico.
Okay.
And now Alan Dulles, CIA director, goes on this press junket, essentially, and says, oh, this coup is a triumph of democracy over communism. And it was
Despite it
the
not
British
being
and the French
communism.
were very quick to point out that his speech was very similar to how Hitler threw speeches about annexing Austria.
Jesus.
He wasn't very happy about that.
Oh, I'm sure.
And basically the rest of the world condemned this coup. They were like, no, you just overthrew a democratically elected president. Like,
yeah, nothing that they were doing was communist.
yeah. And it was really, really fun. So PB Fortune.
Like, they literally weeded out a fucking dictator, implemented democracy, which is like the first step in the right direction. And if you have a problem with the way that that's set up, you're anti-democracy. Like, no matter what they're implementing after you allow the people to elect a leader, if you step in and say, no, what they did was wrong, it's you're fucking anti-democracy, dude.
It's not like they like fascists. They're just anti-Antifa.
Yeah. Anti-fascist, yeah.
Yeah, they're really got that energy to them. Which, I mean,
So
I guess it is calming to know that America's always been this way. They've just been a little more quiet about it.
Yeah.
At least knowing that.
They just have the budget behind the covert option or operations that they're doing.
Yeah. So, as the rest of the world is condemning this coup, America doesn't really listen, but they start PB history and PB success. Two operations off the end. So PB history, this is the best. This is so CIA. This is so American government bureaucracy. The entire point of PB history was that the CIA would go through all of the documentation from the previous government that they just overthrew to retroactively find evidence that the Soviets were involved in any way, so that then they could say, no, look, they were communists. Yeah. See, the Soviets they found nothing.
We have one thing.
Literally
not even
nothing.
A phone call. Nice.
Not even a fucking phone call. No telegrams.
Yeah.
So they were just like, oh,
well, I mean, they only had fucking 9 days. Like,
well, that was a benefit.
Yeah. It's like, it's not like they even had time to send a letter to Russia.
Well, no, they figured they would find like, oh, the Stalin's government sent a letter about crop yields or something.
But even then,
if
it were just a letter to Russia and Russia responded, they would have run with it. But it's like
they found nothing.
There wasn't enough time for anything like that to even have occurred.
No, because their presidency, that government was around for like 6 years.
Yeah,
you'd think that would have been enough time if they were actually communist. They would have gotten letters and shit, but. Yeah, so it wasn't retroactively after the fact justified in their eyes, which is really funny to me. But Carlos Armas, is now instilled as the new president as part of Operation PB Success. PB Success is, we did the coup, we're successful, now what?
Yeah.
Fuck.
God.
So they install him as president, in quotes, and he immediately arrests thousands of people, marking them as communists.
Oh, my God. So it's not even like it was just random people?
Anybody, political
Outwardly
opponents, anybody opposed to him, protesters, anybody high up in the government before the coup.
Yeah, we're anti-communist, not anti-fascist.
Yeah, because they immediately put a crazy fascist. Like, this is a page out of Hitler's book.
Yeah.
Get in power, arrest all your opponents, kill them.
Yeah.
He repeals. Remember, America intervened to get rid of communism and to install democracy. His second action is to repeal the Democratic Constitution of 1945.
What the fuck?
So he officially repeals their constitution, removing all of the protections and all of the advancements that they had made in the short time that they were the government was in power. Labor unions were then outlawed. The United Fruit Company just so happened to get back all of their land. And every positive reform of the last decade was tossed out.
Of course.
So the people, they got a taste. The people got a taste of what they could have. And people are fucking pissed. And this leads to a ton of leftist insurgent groups are starting to pop up and form. Rebel groups are starting to form. This leads to a 36-year-long civil war.
Oh, my God.
Because the CIA, because the United Fruit Company was mad that they lost half their land and got paid for it after profiting millions and millions and millions of dollars out these people for decades. So the next 36 years kind of suck from 1960 to 1996. The government troops throughout this time period happened to be armed with American weapons. Their officers were trained in U.S. military bases that were in the country, including CIA black sites, where they would go in and teach these military officers what they called counterinsurgency techniques, which was torture.
Oh, my God.
Mass killing.
Literally just fucking
and
war
genocide.
crimes. Good
Literally,
Lord.
like, I swear, the CIA must have picked up a lot of those Nazi scientists in Operation Paperclip.
Yeah.
Because it was almost
God.
textbook what the Nazis were doing in Eastern Europe.
Jesus.
Yeah, pretty fucking awful. And American taxpayers subsidizing the whole thing.
Grand.
The largest rebel group throughout this time period was the Guerrilla Army of the Poor, which is a badass name. It was mostly made up of ethnic Mayans and had 270,000 members at its peak. It's a fucking huge
fucking
group.
Massive.
But because of that, because of their ethnic makeup, the government just started a genocide. The Guatemalan genocide against the Mayan people.
Good Lord.
They just were like, oh, well, you're from a Mayan background. You're genetically Mayan. You must be part of the guerrillas' army of the poor. Mass grave.
Good God.
And just started doing that. And it happened in multiple locations around the country. It is UN classified as a genocide. I'm not saying genocide because, I mean, obviously it was, but it's UN classified
as one.
Let's see. Where was I? So, yeah, real happy. The UN also pushed forward or presented in their reports about this event that it was perpetrated significantly and pushed forward significantly by the training from the U.S. provided to the officers within the Guatemalan army. They called it a silent Holocaust because at the time, news wasn't getting out of the country. Yeah. News wasn't reaching the, Western world, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tiny country. Like, you're not going to have anybody reporting on it.
Well, and it was so controlled.
Yeah.
Over 200,000 indigenous Mayans were killed within this genocide alone.
Jesus.
And that wasn't even really counting like battle casualties or anything like that, just within the genocide. And I can't even talk about this 36 years is an immense amount of time.
It's insane.
To talk about this. But to put it short, roaming death squads, kidnapping, assassinations, mass protests, a string of dictators, and that was your life for 36 years. Clock in at the banana farm from the United Fruit Company, go home, and try not to be killed by roaming army death squads who are looking for anybody who might be a rebel.
Yeah. God
Meanwhile, everything from before, these dictators are enriching themselves terribly while you're getting strafed by American jets doing practice runs.
Good Lord.
And using your country in military training exercises just in case they had to come back and attack again.
Good God.
It's terrible. Like, this is... I mean, I've already said, this is horrible.
Yeah.
This is just a terrible event, completely pushed forward by United Fruit Company and America.
For real. Good old-fashioned American propaganda.
It's so... yeah. And by 1985, the U.S. re-enters this mess that they've created. Basically, since the overthrow, everything's been done clandestinely by the CIA. And they've been able to say, oh, look, no, Guatemala's doing great. Like, the propaganda in America was that, no, it's democratic. It's better there now. You see how cheap our bananas are?
Yeah,
it's better there now. But yeah, in 85, the U.S. re-enters the Guatemalan, like, political sphere, I guess. And they start putting out some really interesting statements about how maybe Guatemala should be ruled by civilians. It should have civilian rule and elections. And they were like, oh, now is the time for the birth of democracy in Guatemala. Now is the time. 1985.
Yeah.
They should have democracy down there in Guatemala.
Well, they did, but...
Well, they covered that part up.
Yeah.
So they actually started to have some elections. And America was like, oh, look what we're doing. We're encouraging them to get into democracy. They got a long way to go, but they're having elections now. It was actually proven after the fact that death squad violence increased as soon as they started to get these elections because it incentivized infighting within these fascist groups.
Good God.
So it would be like, oh, I'm running as president against you. We both have death squads. Mm-hmm. Of course we're going to go and start killing our opponent's people.
Jesus.
Fucking wild. And, basically the army and the people during this time period basically just stayed in power. It didn't really change anything. But eventually, some time had passed, and Jorge Antonio Serrano Elias was elected president.
Jesus, what a name.
Crazy name. He tried to dissolve Congress and then dissolve the Supreme Court. And then he started to restrict basic the few basic civil freedoms that they still had left. Because it would fight corruption. That's what he said. He said, we got to get rid of Congress because it's very corrupt, which it was. We got to get rid of the Supreme Court because it's very corrupt. It was. But just his plan was, get rid of it and I'll be Mussolini times 2. But my story will go the right way. And it was kind of like a coming together moment for a lot of people. And basically the entire country protested at every level, from the army to the poorest of the poor.
God damn.
And the army at this point was kind of being regulated a little bit better because there were these small steps that were taken. I think because my theory is that the U.S. says we have to do these elections. Okay, we'll do elections. Well, if I push forward something that looks like democracy, this small thing, it's inconsequential in the grand scheme of things, but makes me look good to the Americans, they'll help me in some way. They'll, do some kind of support. Who knows? But the army was like, no, you can't get rid of the Supreme Court. Like, we have this court system here. Like, this is fucked up. You can't just get rid of Congress. And the army was like, no, we're not going to support you, and we're not going to support this. Meanwhile...
They go, yeah, sorry, we don't support fascism.
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, the CIA stepped in and stopped a military coup from happening. The military was going to coup this guy. They stepped in and said, no, don't do a coup. But we got him to flee the country anyway. Yeah. Just without a coup.
They're like, well, you guys didn't do it. We forced him out. So it looks like we did something.
Yeah. So again, the CIA goes in and causes another one of their leaders to flee the country. Per the Constitution, Congress was now without a president. And they were like, oh, fuck. And I think some of them were like, okay, maybe now's my time to actually do something decent. Mm-hmm. So per the Constitution, it was set up that the Congress would elect the... What the fuck did I write? Okay, they elected a guy named De Leon to be president. He was a human rights ombudsman. An ombudsman is like it's supposed to be like a non-biased guy within whatever topic they're in who will like resolve complaints through remediation recommendations. They'll investigate things. So he would investigate human rights violations and try to resolve them in some way, come up with a solution.
He's like, I got a stack of fucking paperwork for you.
Yeah. And so he was already doing that within the government of Guatemala. So suddenly he's the president. He knows what's been going on. And he's allowed to finish Serrano's term. Because the key point was that he was not a member of any political party.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
He was as unbiased as possible. And he was not very popular. Not at all. He was just like, oh, some fucking bureaucratic pencil pusher is going to step in and do nothing for the next couple of years. Like, this is trash. But he got the Catholic Church, his administration, and Congress to pass the largest group of anti-corruption reforms that basically the country has ever seen.
Good for him.
He got he got Congress to vote for a bill that kicked them all out of Congress and forced them to be reelected.
Good.
And he got all new people in Congress.
That's awesome.
Like, this was huge. He got the Catholic Church to get audited, essentially.
Fuck yeah.
This dude knew his shit, and he knew how to get it done. And yeah, despite his popularity, huge impact to anti-corruption. At this point, he allowed the UN in to help with the official peace process, which led to an increase in human rights, the discovery of the genocide, documentation of that, a resettlement of people onto United Fruit Land. Mm-hmm. Crazy how that happened again. Indigenous rights were instated. Socioeconomic agreements were passed within the country. And the UN officially ended the Civil War in a peace accord where basically all these, rebel groups were like, okay, we'll stop being rebels as long as we can just keep doing the anti-corruption stuff and let us have elections. Mm-hmm. And the UN was like, okay, works for me. And then the UN did what they did, especially during this time period, where they filed a report. It was published in 1999. And they stated that officially, during the Civil War, they had the evidence that the government perpetrated over 400 massacres, which were 93% of all massacres within the Civil War.
Good Lord.
Guerrilla groups perpetrated 3%.
Insane.
83% of the overall victims were indigenous Mayan people.
God damn.
So, there you go. Guatemalan Civil War. Now, Chiquita banana, still the largest leading banana distributor to the U.S., which is gross.
Yeah, as is expected, though.
You know, they've still got issues.
Yeah,
Because no fucking shit, a 36-year Civil War.
Yeah,
Like,
where they still come out doing their best, looking like the heroes, the American heroes and shit.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot better of a place than it was. And,
Yeah.
and every year it's getting better.
Certainly better, but not because of...
Not because of the
America,
CIA
yeah.
or America, but just the amount of just blatant just contradictions that the Americans had, that the CIA had, that just of everything is just ridiculous. Like, none of this was really known until the documents were declassified in the 2000s.
Jesus.
Like, they knew the CIA, people knew the CIA was involved and the U.S. was involved in Guatemala.
Yeah, but not as...
And all this shit,
Not
but
as much
we
as
had
they found out.
no idea how extensive. Basically, the CIA caused a genocide. Like, the whole end of this is the CIA allowed and trained a military force to cause a genocide.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. Why am I not surprised at all?
For real.
So that's the happy season finale.
Yeah, right. As we said, we'll be back January 6th, Monday, January 6th, season 8. And if you guys want to find, or I guess if you want an ad-free version of the show, check us out on Patreon. If you want some exclusive content to carry you through the end of season break, we have 29 exclusive episodes up there on Patreon. AJ has his series called Voices, which had a recent release as well. 30 plus sloppy seconds. So go check all that shit out. Patreon.com/points-o-pressure. You got those names?
Yeah, so we've got the totally not CIA-backed board, Minnie D. Thomas and Toddlewaddle. They do not. They're not corrupt.
Yeah.
We don't pay them.
Yeah. They aren't in the
We're not corrupt.
upper management of Chiquita Banana.
Yeah. They never buy bananas. They just buy not single origin coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got Abby, AJ's Third Nut, Nordic Thunder, Weston, Dark Runner, D's Nuts, G-Dog, Grover, Laura Revo, and Lindo. Thank you all so much for being here. It's been a fun season.
Yeah.
Been a blast.
Some bangers. And as always, if you guys ever have any recommendations for movies, TV shows, books, show ideas, music, whatever, magazines, if you just need somebody to talk to, then by all means reach out to us on Instagram at pointsopressure. Feel free to email us at ppdnaj, just the letters, at gmail.com, or go to our website, pointsopressure.com, and go to the contact us page, send us a voicemail or whatever, and we'll see you guys next season.